one of the things that I think the African Union, which is of course the immediate successor of the OAU, is doing, I think it is beginning to let Africa down. You remember in 1963 in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, the then 31 heads of states who were then present at the formation of the OAU, they were as eloquent as they were clear with the vision of Africa. I remember reading the speech of Josajefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, saying that we need to have one Africa. We need to have the united Africa. We need to have one currency in Africa. We need to have one army in Africa. But it is sad to notice that so many years after such a great mind, we still continue to totter in the manner that Africa totters. And it's a pity, it is a tragic of gigantic proportion that Africa continues to totter in the manner that she does. Now, J.F. Kennedy made sense when he said that a society whose young men and women are in a constant state of slumber will never realize our potential. Africa is a sleeping giant. Africa needs to wake up. Africa needs to rise. It appears as if we have people who continue to inject anesthetics for Africa to continue in her sleep. I do not believe that I hold the truth in terms of what is to be done for Africa to realize her dreams. But I'm just thinking and agonizing to myself, as SADC or as ECOWAS, can't we have a currency within SADC? We can call it the SADC whatever money, and then in the ECOWAS region there, they have another currency for that region. It is a pity that even after flying for 45 minutes or 1 hour 15 minutes from the Harare International Airport to OR Tambo Airport in South Africa, you are confronted with a different currency, and the money that I would have carried from Zimbabwe would be a souvenir, nothing past that. It is a pity. You know, today it's as if I can hear the voice of Kwame Nkrumah through the vicissitudes of time, saying in Accra, Ghana in 1957, at the independence of Ghana, saying that the independence of Ghana means nothing if the rest of Africa is not free. But then you will see that then we had leaders who thought about each other. We had leaders who believed in unity. We had leaders who believed in Africa as a united continent. But then I do not know of the Africa that we have created today. I'm not sure of this Africa, this continent of Kwame Nkrumah, this continent of Julius Kambarage Nyerere, this continent of Hastings, Dr. Kamuzu Banda. It was a great continent. It was a great continent, and our forefathers, realizing the impacts and the implications of colonization, they came together. They united to fight the white men, and they drove the white men out. But then people like Patrice Emery Lumumba, it was as if they were prophesying, saying that of course we are attaining independence, but if we are not careful, neo-colonialism was going to come. If we are not careful, the trappings of power was going to come and take hold of us. Today, in a perverted way of non-interference to each state's domestic affairs, we have an Africa that does not tell a story. We have an Africa whose story is told by romanticists from Europe. We have an Africa whose issues are resolved by the United Nations. I was amazed in Central Africa, in the Boko Harams, that it is the United Nations that is keeping the peace there. They are sending their peacekeeping mission forces there. But we have an African Union, and he's doing nothing about it. So I pose the questions to the African leaders of the day. What has happened? What has happened to the Africa that we grew up being told of? What has happened to the Africa of perhaps 1980 going backwards? What has happened to the Africa of Oliver Reginald Tambo? What has happened to the Africa of even a student as Oliver Ongo Potse Tiro of South Africa? What has happened to that Africa? The current leaders of Africa, their actions are detrimental to the very well-being of Africa. And I look forward to the day that as Africa, we continue to move in one direction with one purpose. Has it been done? Yes, it hasn't been done. Do we have leaders in this modern century who are doing what is right for Africa? Yes, we have, but they are only a handful. We have Ian Khama of Botswana. He is a breath of fresh air. Perhaps one of the key fundamental questions, I know it is very hard, but that we need to ask ourselves is, where are we going as Africa? What are we doing to curb the ethnic wars in Africa? We have the youngest nation in Africa, South Sudan, which continues to suffer from negative ethnicity wars. The Nuer keep rising against the Dinkas. We have the Rwandese in Rwanda. We have the Tutsi, the Hutus. What are we doing as Africa? I dare pose the question to the African heads of states, the African citizens, and all the progressive Africans. What can we do to resolve this? We have been headlines in world news for so long. Europe, America, Asia, and all those other countries out there, they have had their laughs on us for too long. As Africa now, I say, it is time that we unite and realize that Africa powers the whole world. That Africa has the capabilities to support the whole world. What is it that we lack in Africa? For instance, just go to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Conservatively, the Democratic Republic of Congo can power the whole of Africa. But is it doing so? No, it is not doing so. Why? Because of poor governance in Africa. So I believe as a means of going forward, we need to have good, sound governance in Africa. We need to have leaders who have the clarity of thought, clarity of vision.
And Africa's young people are ready to compete. I've met them. They are hungry. They are eager. They're willing to work hard. So we've got to invest in them. As Africa invests in education, our entrepreneurship programs are helping innovators start new businesses and create jobs right here in Africa. And the men and women in our Young African Leaders Initiative today will be the leaders who can transform business and civil society and governments tomorrow. Africa's progress will depend on development that truly lifts countries from poverty to prosperity. Because people everywhere deserve the dignity of a life free from want. A child born in Africa today is just as equal and just as worthy as a child born in Asia or Europe or America. At the recent development conference here in Addis, African leadership helped forge a new global compact for financing that fuels development. And under the AU's leadership, the Voice of a United Africa will help shape the world's next set of development goals.
It is not lost in me that recently the African Union has adopted a blueprint it's calling Agenda 2063, which to me is a good blueprint given that the mandates or the obligations therewith are met. But remember, Africa or the African Union has a history of not fulfilling the things it sets for itself. Remember, we once had the millennial goals. We want the sustainable goals and everything. So it is not lost in me that even with this Agenda 2063, if we are not to be very careful, we are not even going to realize even a tenth of what it entails. But that is not to say we do not have hope for Africa, because I think Africa has what it takes to liberate herself from this constant state of slumber. So what do we do going forward? I believe it is now time that we do not leave the building of Africa on the basis of equivocal or political vague pronunciations. I believe to build Africa, we need now to do a collective effort. The students, the clergy, the legislators, and even a citizen who consider himself to be just an ordinary citizen of any nation. So long you're an African, I believe together we can do this. I have hope in Africa. I have faith in Africa. So going forward, what we need to do is we need to shun corruption. We need to do away with impunity. We need to bring to book every people who are seeing that are doing things that are detrimental, and the people who are pervasive to the African agenda or status quo. I believe if we begin to put those instruments into play, we will realize our Agenda 2063. I believe with leaders who have clarity of vision, we will go far with Africa.
I need an Africa that is developmental based, Africa that is based on unity, Africa that can incorporate the issues of good corporate governance, such as accountability, transparent in whatever they are doing. Africa that is not self-centered, even the leadership.
I want an Africa that is integrated based on Pan-Africanism. I want a peaceful Africa. I want an Africa that is secure, an Africa that is peaceful, an Africa that is characterized by good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, and the rule of law.